Have you ever wondered if one person can truly change the world? Well, get ready to meet someone who did just that, starting from the most unlikely of places. This is the story of Daniel, a boy whose life began in the shadows but ended up lighting up an entire town. Daniel's childhood was far from a fairy tale. He lived with his aunt, a woman lost in the fog of alcoholism, whose days blurred into a haze of neglect. Their home was quiet, not with peace, but with unspoken sadness. While other kids played, Daniel learned to be invisible, tiptoeing around the house. But even in this bleakness, a tiny spark of kindness flickered within him. He'd secretly sneak out to help his elderly neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Gable, with their groceries. He'd rake leaves from their lawn and take out their trash, all before his aunt even woke up. These small acts were his secret rebellion, a way of pushing back against the darkness that surrounded him. He wasn't looking for praise, he just knew it was the right thing to do. This was the foundation of the hero he was destined to become. As the years passed, Daniel grew from a quiet boy into a determined young man. The hardships of his youth didn't break him, they forged him. Instead of becoming bitter, he developed a deep empathy for others who were struggling. He saw his own childhood loneliness reflected in the faces of the elderly who sat by their windows, and he saw the neglect of his own home in the litter-strewn parks and forgotten public spaces of his town. He decided he couldn't just stand by and watch. He had to do something. So, with little more than passion and a belief in his community, Daniel started a local volunteer group. He called it Town Guardians. At first, it was just him and a couple of friends from school. They started small, organizing weekend cleanups at the local park. They'd spend hours picking up trash, painting over graffiti, and planting flowers in neglected garden beds. It was hard work, and not everyone understood. Some people in town were skeptical. "Who's this kid think he is?" they'd mutter. They saw his efforts as naive, a flash in the pan that wouldn't last. They were used to the town's problems, and they didn't believe one young man could make a difference. But Daniel refused to be discouraged. For every doubter, there was someone like Mrs. Gable, who would bring his small team lemonade and tell them how much their work meant. Slowly, people started to notice the changes. The park became a place where families felt safe to gather again. Buoyed by this small victory, Daniel expanded the group's mission. He organized a senior Saturday program where volunteers would visit elderly residents, helping with household chores, running errands, or simply sitting with them for a chat. He remembered his own quiet acts of kindness as a child and knew how much a little help and companionship could mean. The group grew, attracting more and more volunteers who were inspired by Daniel's unwavering dedication. He wasn't just cleaning up parks, he was building bridges, connecting people, and slowly but surely, earning the respect of the very community that once doubted him. His past wasn't a weight holding him down, it was the fuel driving him forward. The town had seen its share of storms, but nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. The rain started on a Tuesday, a steady, relentless downpour that didn't stop for 3 days. Rivers swelled, creeks overflowed their banks, and soon, the water began to creep into the streets. Panic set in. The town's official emergency services were stretched thin, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster. Roads were impassable, phone lines were down, and families were becoming trapped in their homes as the floodwaters rose with terrifying speed. The town was on the brink of chaos. But while the authorities were struggling to coordinate a response, Daniel and his town guardians were already moving. They had spent months preparing for this kind of scenario, creating phone trees, mapping out vulnerable areas, and stockpiling basic supplies. They didn't wait for orders. They sprang into action. Using inflatable rafts and a few small boats, they began navigating the flooded streets, their local knowledge proving more valuable than any official map. They went from house to house, checking on residents, especially the elderly and those with disabilities they had been helping for months. They ferried stranded families to higher ground, setting up a makeshift shelter in the town's high school gymnasium. Then, a desperate call crackled over a walkie-talkie. A group of children from an after-school program were trapped. The community center, located in a low-lying area, was flooding fast. The water was already waist-high and rising, and the building's main exit was blocked by debris. The situation was critical. Without hesitation, Daniel grabbed a rope and jumped into a small motorboat, heading directly into the most dangerous part of the flood. The current was treacherous, pulling at the boat and slamming it against submerged cars and floating debris. He could hear the children's frightened cries echoing over the water. Reaching the community center, he found the front door jammed shut. He had to smash a window to get inside, where he found a terrified teacher trying to keep a dozen small children calm on top of tables. The water was now chest deep. One by one, with a calm he didn't feel, Daniel began lifting the children out of the window and into the boat, making several perilous trips back and forth through the raging torrent until every single child was safe. It was a heroic act of bravery, a moment that would define him forever. When the floodwaters finally receded, they left behind a trail of devastation. Mud and debris covered everything. Homes were ruined, businesses destroyed. But amidst the wreckage, a new story was being told. It was the story of Daniel. News of his bravery, especially the rescue at the community center, spread like wildfire. The town didn't just see him as a helpful young man anymore, they saw him as a hero. The local news ran his picture on the front page. The mayor held a ceremony in his honor, presenting him with a medal for his courage. But the real change wasn't in the awards or the accolades. It was in the spirit of the town itself. The skepticism that once greeted Daniel's efforts had been washed away by the flood, replaced by a wave of admiration and gratitude. People who had once scoffed at his town guardians were now lining up to volunteer. Inspired by his example, the entire community came together for the cleanup effort. Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers worked side by side, and a powerful sense of unity emerged from the disaster. Daniel's actions had been a catalyst, igniting a spark of community spirit that had long been dormant. The town was rebuilt, not just with new wooden bricks, but with a new foundation of compassion and cooperation. Daniel, the boy who grew up in the shadows of neglect, had become the beacon of hope for his entire community, proving that one person's kindness, fueled by determination, can truly change everything. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story of resilience and community. If you were as inspired by Daniel as we were, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting content. Don't forget to share this video to spread the message that anyone, no matter their background, can be a hero in their own way. We'll see you in the next one.